Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs, and I'm currently teaching entrepreneurship at Vinh University in Hanoi, Vietnam. Today, please welcome our guest, Ricardo Jiménez, author of the book Crash Course, A Founder's Journey to Saving Your Startup and Sanity. Ricardo, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, we love having guests from all over the world. And you are in, did you say Madrid or Barcelona, Spain?
In Barcelona right now.
Very, very nice. It's one place I haven't visited, but would like to visit. So let's start with you giving us about your professional background, how you got to where you're at right now.
Sure. Well, let's go back to the very beginning. I am from a little town, medium town for Spanish standards called Zaragoza. I lived there until I was 21, and I moved to London to do my last year of university. I came back to London to look for my first job, and this happened to be maybe 1 or 2 days right after September the 11th, or even maybe the same day. I don't really remember. So it was really, really hard, and I ended up working as a barista in a Starbucks. Then I came back to Spain, to Madrid, to work for Iberia Airlines, my first paid office job. And then I got a scholarship to go to Indonesia to work as a trade advisor. I was working on the commerce side of the embassy, doing trade between Spain and Indonesia. Very fascinating year, which we could talk for many hours. And in that year, I visited every Southeast Asian country except for Philippines, and another one which I forgot, and Laos. And then I moved to Miami to work on the first cell phone apps, right, just right before the iPhone. I took a year off to travel all over the world, went to many places, India, Italy, and then I did an MBA at Duke. Uh, then moved to Austin to work for Dell, which is a company that I don't name in the in the book, but that's the company from northern Austin. I was there for 9 years. Then I started a company, which is the company that the book is based on. Um, uh, yeah, I after on January 2018, after some investments that I had did well, I quit my last job. I traveled for a few years and ended up. I am now an angel investor. I know we haven't gotten into the details of how I ended up doing this, but that's what I do now. I live between Puerto Rico and Barcelona. I am very passionate about entrepreneurship, but not so much from the startup or the company point of view, but mostly from the human side. I think there's hundreds of books about business and about the different areas of a startup, raising money, marketing, finance, but not about the person who has to do all those things, who's the founder. And that's who I really care about. I love to talk about the individual, the person, not the thing.
So tell us why you wrote this book.
For two main reasons. First, because it's my story. It's what I wanted to share. I didn't want to live with the ghost inside of me that I hadn't shared everything that I went through. And also then because I thought there was a lot of value. The book tells the story of struggle, hope, but a lot of insight, a lot of energy of someone who starts a company, puts everything that he has to make it work. I'm not gonna share right now how it ends, but let's say it's a story that most founders face, and it's a story that's not told. So I thought there was a lot of room uh, to write a book for the founder, not so much for the company, and it has been really well received because founders really resonate with the book.
So let's start off with chapter one. Why did euphoria mean to you at the start of your journey?
Okay, what did euphoria meant for me? So I grew up around 40 years ago in a middle class family in Spain. Um, I think what I wanted was more that I was seeing around. I don't think it was fulfilling what I was when I would look at my people around me, their I don't know, their jobs, their lifestyle. I think I wanted more adventure, more freedom, more abundance, and just feeling okay. It wasn't sufficient, so there was some kind of discontent, not full satisfaction, and I thought there was more, so I wanted more. That's what it meant. Like it was like a reminder that there's something that I don't really have yet, but that that I should aspire to achieve.
Was your dad an entrepreneur or what did your mom and dad do
So
professionally?
my dad was a doctor for 40 years, family doctor. My mom first was an attorney working for the government for 15 years, and now 25 years as a judge. She's about to retire. My uncles were teachers or doctors, and my cousins are engineers, pretty much, or teachers. And I'm telling you this because I didn't even hear the word entrepreneur until I did my MBA at Duke. I was almost 30 the first time I heard an entrepreneur. Not only I didn't know the word, that I didn't know anyone, or probably even anyone who knew anyone who was an entrepreneur. So that came very late in my life, but when I realized what it was, then I thought this is what I've been. This represents what I want to do.
So tell us about your startup and why you left the comfort of these larger companies and steady paychecks for doing your own thing.
So um, from the very beginning that I was in this big company, I started saving a little bit, and I thought once I hit this goal of having these savings to be able to invest in my company, I guess I will resign and I will go 100% with my startup. But before that happened, I was laid off. Um, at this point, I had many friends in this company in Dell, and one of them told me, there is an opening in my team. Why don't you send me your resume and I will pass it on to my manager? And after 2 or 3 days, I realized that I didn't have the energy or the heart to send him my resume. Being laid off, it's very disappointing, frustrating, but I also took it as a sign that perhaps I wasn't in the right place. And I thought, okay, it looks like this is the time for me to devote full time uh, to my startup. Again, I didn't have the other resources that I wanted, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do, and I also knew that very often nothing is going to be perfect. Things don't align perfectly for you to take a jump. Uh, but that was the opportunity that was in front of me. At this point, we pretty much had our product made, shipped, and it was just ready for sales. So it was the right time for me to go 100% in trying to get traction with our company. And I can tell you a little bit more about what we did. We did a very unusual in this world of tech, and in a city like Austin, when there's so much tech, commerce, food. Um, And we did toys in the shape of countries because we wanted kids to learn about the world from playing and through their education. And we had a bigger vision I had a bigger vision with a big brand to end up doing video games, a platform to connect the kids over the world. Perhaps one day a movie, a theme park. one of the reasons why I was interested in this idea was because I thought it was very scalable. We could start with 4 countries and then expand to 200. We could do the states of the US. So it was very easy for me to imagine how we could have a very broad product line and how there were many industries in which this could fit, from educational toys, um, as a souvenir for travel, as a gift, in the education area. So I thought there was a lot of opportunity, and it was the right time for me to really give it a chance and to see for myself whether that was a good idea or not.
And how long did you run this company for, and what happened to it?
So for about 6 years, again, the first couple of years, it was more on the side while we were getting the product ready, and then about 4 years full time. So what happened to it, and I hope that our wonderful audience will read the book for full details. But the book tells the story of the company, which is me and my co-founder the first years trying to find avenues to grow the company, and not being able to get that breakthrough. We tried to sell online, through advertisements, through partnerships in local stores. We went to conferences, but we weren't able to I guess to crack sales, and it didn't, the company did not succeed at the end.
And what was it like having a partner? Because I read a statistic the other day, because I'm making a speech to a group of venture capitalists that's coming next week. And it turns out that venture capitalists prefer to invest in partner with start founders of 2 or more people as opposed to one individual. So investors are more likely to invest in teams than individuals. But it turns out that Wharton did a study and found out that individuals actually had a higher return than teams. So what was it like for you to have a partner, and what did you learn from that?
So I think there were 2 stages. One was the very beginning, in which my partner and I, we shared the dream, we shared the vision. We both had the motivation. He lived in China at the time, at the beginning, and we were very clear on the different areas that each of us had to do, and we would work very well individually. We would make progress, and then we would meet once, twice a week, and then we would continue making, like I said, a lot of progress. So that was a lot of fun. When you're working with someone that's smart, intelligent, committed, someone that you trust. So that was very special. But it's not always like that. In fact, after the second year, it changed. My partner, Juan, he moved to California, had 2 kids, started working for a big company there. So his motivation really fell towards our startup, and he deprioritized it. So that was very different, because at some points it didn't feel fair that, again, I was full-time, not making money, but at the same time I'm not getting a salary from the company because we didn't have a salary. I mean, we didn't have almost any revenue. So it could feel unfair, but I don't know if it's because of loneliness or because I wanted his input or his support. I still wanted him to stay around for as long as we could, and I would admit that perhaps he would have just preferred to leave the company earlier, but I asked him to stay a little longer for support to see if we had a breakthrough, and until the point in which it was not sustainable, and he said that he no longer wanted to do this. So I would say it depends on everything is very contextual. If you have a strong team with different skills, similar vision who are committed, I think that's an ideal situation. But there's also lots of times where there's conflict between partners that could suck a lot of energy out of a startup, and that's the opposite end of the spectrum. So it would depend, I would say.
So getting back to your book and talking about euphoria, how did euphoria influence your early decisions as a founder?
Um, so I think what comes to mind now was just dreaming big, having a bigger vision that anything that perhaps could have been uh, realistic. The other thing is that, like I said, I didn't know what a founder was until I was almost 30. So going back to Steve Jobs' commencement speech on Stanford, sometimes you understand your choices looking back, you connect the dots looking back. So I was always pursuing the step that felt more exciting to me until that led me to becoming a founder, and I did that with all my heart. I wish it had gone better, especially for those who supported us, and I would have liked them to get a better reward for a bigger reward for their support. But I think founders, I don't know if the word's euphoric, but I think founders are very optimistic. Um, we try to do something that has never been done before. We try to leave our mark in the world. So again, perhaps it's not euphoria what moves us, but a huge degree of optimism and wanting to self-express and wanting to make an impact.
Were there moments when your expectations clashed with reality?
Yes, there were, I mean, almost every day, something would not go as I would have liked it uh, to go, and I can. There's lots of stories in the book, but there's one comes to mind now. So again, we had these toys that I thought were special, educational. They had been done with a lot of intention, a lot of love, and lots of my friends in Austin, they were telling me you need to have your toys in this store. And after 2 years, I was able to get a meeting with the owner and buyer of the store. So I prepared that morning my presentation. I went to meet her, and then I introduced myself. And when I was about to show her our toys uh, and take them out of the bag, her response was, "I don't need to see them. Uh, I've already seen them on the website." And and uh, and I asked her if that was sufficient for her to make a decision, and she said that yes, because our colors were too colorful and too branded. So that was very heartbreaking, and many other stories in which I was trying to fundraise. Lots of many instances, I got a lot of interest, but things didn't materialize. The same with distributors. So constantly, something happened that was not what I expected. So I learned to live in this, I don't know how to say, continual disappointment.
Entrepreneurs, and I've done 30 startups myself, so I know how this is. Um, what would you advise founders about managing their emotional highs and lows? How did you handle that?
Yes, so let me give you an example very recent, not from my book, but something that has happened in the last week with two founders in which I have um, invested. So one of them is working on a tech company, a crypto. He's doing his next race, and one of his friends is an investor, and he went to the US side of the world. He moved to the Europe side of the world to spend a week with him. And after spending the week with this investor, he left, and then this investor said that he was going to invest. If not, yeah, at the end he didn't invest, right? And my friend was very disappointed, and he said that he had been He felt that he said he felt he had been used and jerked around. So as I was talking to him, I put a lot of emphasis in distinguishing between him as a person and his company. So my advice for him would be and was, you are human, you have emotions, you are sad, you are frustrated. You need to allow yourself to feel your human experience because these things affect us, and I can see that you're touched. So you need to allow to become emotional and feel the emotions. So that's one part of the advice. For you as a person, you need to feel the emotions. For you, for your company, you need to have clarity because this person also gave him feedback. So for your company, you need to be clear and you have to make rational rational decisions. So that will be, again, I'm reiterating, but I think this is very important to distinguish between the person of the founder who needs to allow himself to feel emotions and be a person, and then the company. And people don't make this distinction. They're trying to just make quick decisions for the company to avoid feeling the rejection, the disappointment, or the fear, and they end up making worse decisions because they're not acting from clarity. That will be one point. And the other thing that I think you learn with time is to be a little bit more equanimous. Uh, we take things as if they were, I don't know, the last penalty of the World Cup. We give them too much significance in the moment, and I think with time we learn to realize that it wasn't that grave. It wasn't the end of the world. So a little bit more of perspective would be my other piece of advice.
When you're investing in companies, what industries do you invest in? And what's the profile of the right type of entrepreneur that you like to put money into?
So very at the beginning, I started with crypto and then tech, and then I had a phase in which it was more YOLO. So you only live once, have fun. So I invested in exotic companies like a logistics company in Pakistan or a gold mine in Paraguay, but those things didn't work out. So I guess I reassembled myself, and then I thought, okay, you need to start investing with a little bit more, let's say, a little bit more in things that are not so fun, but they could still be more sound businesses. So the typical questions are, what's this company trying to solve? How what's the problem? How big is this problem? And are these the right people? So that those are three key questions. But then when we think about founders, it has to be a combination of uh, heart, that they are very passionate about what they do, even though I may not be, and clarity. I really like to see people who think for themselves and who are not just repeating whatever the narrative is currently on the media.
Why did you use the metaphor of moving counterclockwise to describe your own path?
I don't really remember very much about the context in which uh, I may have said that, but what I think is that lots of people have a clear, say, star that they want to reach, or a very clear career, or they want to be incorporate and they just want to go up the ladder. I never knew where I wanted to be two steps ahead. I never even knew what I wanted to do next until it was in front of me. So I think it has to do with that I had to figure out everything every step of the way because I never had a clear direction other than that I wanted to feel euphoria. I think that's the only northern star that I had.
Um, can you share a story when moving against the grain helped or hurt your venture?
Yes. One of the when I reflect back on our company, um, and you think, why didn't it work? Why didn't it succeed? Sometimes it's hard to come with final conclusions. But one thing that I'm pretty confident that was not a good decision was that we build a structure of a medium company. We manufactured 12,000 products. We set distribution into different continents, and we spent all this money, all these investments without having uh, a single customer because we assumed we're going to build them and we're going to build a product and it will come. And that was not the right thing of doing things. I think a smarter approach would have been to test what we had, to find customers that wanted it, um, to have a business model that worked, and then scale the business model, not scale the logistics of the company when we didn't have a business model. So that was one of the big lessons from the company.
When venture capital people tell young entrepreneurs, go interview 100 people and see what they have to say, do you find that to be wise advice, or would you recommend something else?
You mean before deciding, so to test their idea? Is that
Yes. Yeah, before you
yeah,
make the investment
it's really
in what
hard.
you're going to do.
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what I don't. I'll tell you what I don't. Again, maybe it may work. I think feedback. I think you may get some feedback that could be helpful, but at the same time, I think it would be very hard to get conclusive feedback uh, for most of the innovations in life that are true breakthroughs. It takes sometimes years to for the market to catch on. So if you're asking the wrong people, I'm sure that lots of the innovation that we have today would have been rejected. Um, so that's from a from a theoretical point of view. I also think there's something that sometimes as entrepreneurs we want to see things for ourselves, or at least that was my case. Um, Even 100 people will have told me that they didn't like my product or that they wouldn't buy my product. I still think that a stubborn place of me would have liked to see that for myself. So yeah, I think it has some value to get feedback, but it's not conclusive. What do you think?
I don't find that the case. What I tell my students, based on my own experiences, talk to people who would write the check. Don't talk to anybody. Talk to people who you think will buy from you and tell them, oh, I only want to know what you really paid for this product because I don't want to waste time building something that's not of value to you. Because I did that once. I created a company called Funding Organizer, a common app for commercial bank loans. And I'd done work with 15 banks, and everybody was doing it the same way: PDF form, get some initial information, then spend 48 weeks emailing you every day asking for different pieces of information. And so loan officer said, oh, it'd be great to have an electronic one where you just send a link and people fill it out and can do all the information. We created one that you could fill out and get all the information. Took 48 weeks to get. We could do it in as little as an hour, but no more than a day. And so when we went to market it to banks, the banks said we weren't interested, but we said we could reduce the time to close the deal from 4 to 8 weeks to as little as a day. And they said, we like the current system. And if we had asked in the beginning and told them about the idea and said, listen, I don't want to build something that you just don't want to change the way you do things now, your own process, then I probably wouldn't have spent the money trying to build something. So I told students, I noticed with what ventures that I did that didn't work, I saw a problem, created a solution, and assumed the world might buy it because it was a real problem. But you have to talk to the people writing the checks and ask
Yeah.
them, will you be a beta tester with the idea of buying? Because again, I don't want to build something, waste your time if it's not what you want.
Yeah, that's so yeah, the same time that I don't know if the words to that I didn't want to do a broad market research, I think a better approach would have been to try to sell our prototypes and yeah, and see what I would learn. And in fact, um there's a startup company that they're trying to do that they're doing voice AI, I think let's say business, some kind of voice for businesses with AI. And the founder started advertising the product without having a product. And then when he started getting demand for the product, that's when he tried to find the best CTO that he could find. And I think that's a smarter approach to first find something that people may want to buy. I think that's for sure a safer approach.
Yeah, we have a question from the audience. As an investor, are you interested in investing in ideas, founder, or future revenue? If it is a combination, which one of these are more important to you and why? And do you do the mums test?
Which test?
Mums, M-M-U-M apostrophe S. I have not heard that term
Oh,
before.
okay. So I don't know about that test. If they want to explain it, we can explore it together. But I will respond. When many years ago, when I was a founder and I was very naive, I thought an idea was a business. And now I see that there's a huge difference between an idea and a business. And I know the amount of work, energy, smart decisions that it needs to take a business. So for sure, I place a premium on what's called traction. And the word traction used to be a word that I used to hate because I didn't have traction. But I think it's the best way to cut noise when you really have, I don't know, customers, revenues, profits. So yeah, I really do care about that. And I also care a lot about the founder. One of the privileges that I have is that I can work with or support people that I like, ideas that I like. With lots of founders, I've become friends, not necessarily with all of them. Sometimes I have been very, very disappointed because some founders will take your money and then you wouldn't hear from them. So I have lots of stories, but that to share, I do care about the traction, and I really do care a lot about working with people that I like, that I think they're special, that amaze me, that I think they have a good heart, and that I think they have the clarity to make their company a success.
Here is the definition of mom's test is a concept from a book called The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick, and it refers to how to talk to customers and learn if your business is a good idea, even when everyone is lying to you, including your own mother. I actually have a test that I actually do with my mom, which is if my mom can't explain it to her Mahjong group, then I've got to keep working on what my product or service actually does. So if my mom can explain to her Mahjong group, then I know I've done a good job of
Mhm.
communicating what that is.
Yeah, yeah. You
So
wanna?
um, on chapter three, an open door, can you recall the moment you felt kicked through into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So what
What
as
was
a
what was
what?
the moment that made you think entrepreneurship was the right way for you?
Um, It's hard to tell if there was a specific moment. I remember I was taking a course at Duke called Entrepreneurial Finance, and there was a case study in which I think, I don't know, someone was trying to build a company in one of Chicago's. They were thinking about renting one of these boxes, a luxurious box, in one of Chicago baseball stadiums. And yeah, it was a long time ago. I don't remember the details of the case study, but from having an idea read and then just having some very general ideas and then unpacking the whole case with the teacher and my team, and seeing so much more in that business. What could go right? What could go wrong? All these things that I didn't know, and understand how, I don't know, I understand how much depth there could be in trying to make a business work. I thought that was very alluring to me. This let's call this structure, or this trying to build a project with all these forces around. Uh, I think there's very few things that can be as, I don't know, as open, as with the capacity to grow, to make an impact, to evolve, to recruit people. I think it has so many elements that's one of the things that captivated me. That it's so rich, the amount of things and on people that can get together for a project.
What role did luck, timing, or external pressure play in your path?
What luck. So in my path, the same way that it's hard, the same way that it's hard to identify a specific cause for my company not working, I do believe a lot in self-honesty, and it's very hard. This is what I think about a lot. It's very hard to start a company when the odds are against you. It's also very hard to finish a company in which you put everything that you had. But as you keep on being honest and you have a lot of drive, I think it's more probable that luck will end up finding you. And the same way that in which I don't feel that I had any luck with my company, something happened during those years, which is that for a few months I was in a co-working space, and I ran into one guy who was coming from the Amsterdam Bitcoin conference. I started chatting to him, and that conversation changed my life. So again, my company didn't do well, but because of my company, I worked a few months in a co-working space in which I met a guy that changed my life. So
How so did he change your life?
he told me about Bitcoin. I listened for half an hour. Um, he he told me that Bitcoin solved the Byzantine problem of different parties being able to communicate with each other without an intermediary. And to be honest, that didn't mean very much to me. I didn't see much significance in that. But when he said that Bitcoin was the internet of money, I think my ears raised. I got excited. That made a lot of sense to me. And I thought the same way that we are exchanging information with emails, I think we could change value with digital money. And yeah, I thought about it. I realized that times were changing. This was 11 years ago. We don't consume news, music, media like we used to. Um, and I thought, yeah, money is a more sensitive topic. For sure, it's going to be harder, but this still makes sense to me. And this is the kind of bet that I want to make. Maybe this is 10 times riskier than gold, but if it works, the reward could be 100 times bigger. So I was a struggling entrepreneur at that time. I got a loan and I invested half my loan in Bitcoin.
What was the price of Bitcoin at that time?
Most at around $500.
How much?
500, more or less.
Oh, $500?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So that is what launched you into being an investor
Yeah,
because that
that's
was a hit for you.
there it goes. There's the answer. It wasn't so linear. It wasn't like never in my life. It wasn't a linear path. I sold, I bought back. But yes, that was the starting point for, yeah, to become an investor.
I have to say, I met somebody at the Angel Capital Conference, and he went to Stanford, and he had a venture and it didn't work out well, and he was in an entrepreneurship class and wrote a business plan, and he was running late to hand in his plan, and so was this other guy. And the other guy said, "Hey, would you mind looking at this plan? I want to make sure I get a good grade." And the guy go, "Wow, this plan's what you're doing is really interesting." And he goes, "I'm moving back to Brazil. I sold my car. Are you looking for investors to see how we're trying to raise $50,000 for a prototype?" And so he said, "I'll put 15,000 in." And he got something like 10, 15%. Turned out to be Google that he invested in. And he goes, "If I had walked in at that particular time and he wasn't late and didn't want to get a good grade, I would have went to Brazil, failed entrepreneur, um, joined the family business and done something else. But right place, right time, and got lucky that the investment turned out to be what it turned out to be."
This was Google.
So yeah,
That's a real story. Oh.
yeah, yeah. So he told us this at the Angel Capital Conference. How did your personal background, especially because you went to Duke and got your MBA, and upbringing shape your drive?
Um, so I always had a lot of drive, I would say, and ambition, even though I never saw myself as competitive, but I always had curiosity for the world. The first time that I went overseas as an exchange student without my parents, I was only 11, and I spent 3 weeks with a family. I took an airplane, even before my dad took his first airplane. I took maybe, I don't know, 5, 10 times an airplane before my father ever took one. So I think I always had this curiosity for the world, and this ambition. What I didn't have was the education or the knowledge, or um, I wasn't in touch with, I guess, with reality, with what was possible. And I think Duke gave that to me to start seeing case studies, real situations, meeting people, uh, almost like bringing me to a new reality of what was possible.
And being a Duke grad, did you feel like because of your going to a superior MBA program and having some professional success at the different companies and for the government when you work for them, did you feel like that underestimated how hard entrepreneurship would be?
Yes, yeah, I didn't know what you don't know. I think we've all heard that it's hard. We all know that statistics are, I don't know, 90 against one. It's very difficult. So again, I knew it was hard, but what I didn't anticipate was the constant. So you would think it's hard to build a successful company. Yes, but that's not one hardship. What I realized was very hard was the day to day. So every day I'm trying to accomplish something that's not working. So again, it's not that I am trying to build a company and then you work for 3 years and then you go and take the exam and then you fail the exam. No, it's like it's many years of constant rejection, trying to speak to customers, investors, distributors. So yeah, I never anticipated that how hard it was going to be. And I also didn't anticipate that. I know we are all busy, we all have our different interests and priorities, but sometimes I felt a big lack of consideration. There was this company in Austin that had 6 or 8 stores, who I thought was a perfect distributor for our store, and they asked us to make all these product changes to meet their criteria. And after I worked with my designer to accommodate for all the changes, I asked for a meeting with the buyer to show them our upgraded product, and she didn't even take the meeting with me. So it was lots of things that I thought sometimes it felt a little heartless now that I speak about that. So yeah, I never anticipated that.
Were there any opportunities you initially resisted but now see as a as pivotal?
Um, yes, going many years back, when I was 24, I think, or 23, I got this option to go to the to work to Indonesia for the embassy of Spain, but that was not one of my choices. And in fact, when I was offered Indonesia, and it was pretty much take it or leave it, there were, let's say, 150 spots for maybe 10,000 people applied. And I got offered the positions of Indonesia. I didn't know anything about Indonesia, and I started reading about Indonesia, and it didn't really sound appealing. Uh, but I asked the person that I was going to replace, I asked around a little bit, and I ended up saying yes. And of course, that changed my life. A Spanish 20-year-old kid who goes to Indonesia and then goes to Miami. I think the world opened up. So yeah, Indonesia wasn't what I expect. It wasn't what I wanted, but then it ended up being so much more than I expected, and I get a little emotional now thinking about how special that year was.
You told me before we got on that you've been to 60 countries. Has your travels, because I think traveling opens up our minds and we see all kinds of possibilities that we never would see if we didn't travel. How did travel affect your thinking as an entrepreneur, and maybe the travel affect how you ended up coming up with your entrepreneurial idea?
Yes, I think traveling does lots of things. First, you're exposed to new things, which has a component of, I don't know, magic and aliveness. But then you can see that not everybody is the same. That people, I may say the obvious, but sometimes we need to get out of, we need to really experience it to see, because now I can see a lot of Instagram travel right now in which people go, they take a couple of coffees, they go to a vineyard, they take a few selfies, and then they go back without really experiencing the country. And I'm sure I've done that as well, and I think that's fun. But when you go a little deeper, then you realize that your way of thinking, your way of living, it's just one way. If you have been born or grew up in a different country, perhaps you will think in a very different way. So I think it allows me not to be so fixed in my own beliefs and opinions. I think that lots of things are contextual, and I do think that I have a lot of openness and empathy that I've been cultivating. And another magical thing is when you connect ideas. Because the beautiful thing about having experiences that nobody else has is that you're able to connect ideas in a way that others couldn't, because they didn't have uh, yeah, those experiences. So a lot of growth and a lot of openness, I would say.
Was there a conflict between pursuing your passion and meeting practical needs?
A conflict between passion and practical needs. I think, let's say, my most basic needs were always met. Um, what took me a little bit more was to find my passion, if we can say it like that. I was always trying to find what was most exciting, but I never had a clear passion like some people know. I want to be, I don't know, a doctor or an astronomer when they're 8 years old. For me, it took a lot to end where I would say I was most passionate, which was my company. But my advice to balance those would be, if you're doing something very risky, know what your worst case scenario would be. And if you're doing something, let's say, safe but boring, start planning and preparing, and have a time in mind for which you're going to do the jump and do something that's more exciting.
What would you tell others trying to balance security? Because I think once people get married and they start having kids, they're worried about security, naturally so, putting kids through private school, college. just taking care of day-to-day living and still having ambition to do something great and change people's lives, what would you tell others about trying to have that balance of security and ambition?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very hard when people have lots of obligations and they feel that they're responsible to bring a certain amount of income home and that they have to. I think I think it's very hard for them to make changes. So I don't know. I think it's very hard. But what I would advise is for people not to fool themselves, not to live 30 years with 20 years with an ambition or a goal or a dream if they know they're not going to do it. So so to be honest with where they are, I think it's better than to be fooling yourself, uh, trying to in a way escape in your mind from a reality that's not what you'd like it to be.
Who were your world's friends on quotations that influenced you the most? Mentors, peers, strangers? Who had the greatest influence over you?
So it's very hard to single out one person because so many people have influenced my path. But when I think about the hardest days of being an entrepreneur, there was another entrepreneur who became my friend and who 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 I would meet every Thursday, and he became the person that his name is Hussein. I talked to him in the book. I think he was the person who gave me some understanding and relief. Someone who would pay for my coffee, who would have ideas for me, who would listen to me. Um, so he was one, and the other person that I had a coach. I always thought that having a coach would be a luxury that I couldn't afford. Um, but I was so emotional and so paralyzed that I realized that it was a basic need for me to have a coach. And in our 1 hour sessions, the first 15 minutes of our sessions, we would spend them in me trying to um, connect and get unstuck, and because I was so overwhelmed. And then only in the last 10 minutes we were able to speak about business. So those two people were very I don't know if the word, it's more than valuable. They were really supportive in my worst in my hardest years of being an entrepreneur.
What advice do you have for founders about cultivating the right connections?
What advice do I have? I think it's always important to be genuine. I think if I always I had lots of connections, but I never had, let's say, a connection at the highest levels of business that could really help me. So connections are helpful, and lots of people say that your network is your net worth. I believe more in friendships, but the but my but I also think this is I think a key point. I think founders need to be focused on building a business, not on developing a network. I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of going to every networking event and you have the illusion that you're making a lot of progress, but because you've met all these people, uh, but it's very hard to then turn all those connections into any real traction for your company. So focus on doing something valuable, and then the right people will come along the way. I think that's a better approach than just trying to meet people willy-nilly, uh, because entrepreneurship it's not a networking contest.
What would you tell someone about the importance of culture over cash?
Okay, this may be a little bit controversial. I think culture over cash can be said by companies that uh, so I can get that, and maybe if I had a successful company that had been successful because of culture, because we attracted the right people and people were happy working for the company and they believe in the mission. I think that's what I would say. But the problem of my company, and I would say most likely most very, 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 very early stage startups, it's not culture. We don't even have almost a chance to develop a culture. My problem was cash. So for the very early stages, what you need is cash, and then you build a culture. What do you think about that?
I think I would agree with that.
Okay. But it's a little bit
Yeah,
controversial, right? Because it's
yeah.
okay.
Uh, what traits did you look for in co-founders or first hires?
Um, well, the qualities that I appreciate would be for someone who believes in what we're doing and someone that can contribute and someone that I can trust. That was one of the things that made it much easier for my founder and me. Uh, that I think we saved a lot of time and money in lawyers because we would just send each other an email with even the percentage of our shares or the main agreements, and then we would reply, "I agree." So someone that you can trust goes a long way.
Last question for you. How are you using AI in terms of evaluating the entrepreneurs that you're investing in or at least considering investing in? Where does AI fit into your life now?
So I made in a few ways. So on one hand, I think AI has become the new narrative. It may end up chewing up the world, and it's such a huge, I don't know, concept technology change that's a little bit intimidating to me. So I have invested in a few AI companies and in a couple of funds that invest a lot in AI. I think that's a little bit of my defensive move. In terms of personal use, I think that I'm still not fully aware of the capacities because lots of my friends have been telling me lately, for this thing that you're thinking about, you need to ask AI. So I think I need to spend a little bit more time befriending my AI tools.
Ricardo, thank you so much for spending the time with us. And I was drawn to your book because you weren't the next Steve Jobs. You know, you didn't have this big success. You were like the other 99% of entrepreneurs who learned a lot and could give great advice to entrepreneurs, but didn't have the big home run. And so I thought what you learned was really valuable for people to hear about and how you still got lucky that Bitcoin, you end up being smart enough, I guess, to buy Bitcoin at the time you bought it. And that turned out to be the hit. And who cares how you get there as long as you get there.
Yeah, Mark, I'm very touched. I'm very honored. Thank you very much for your kind words, and it was a pleasure being here.
Well, thank you everybody for coming this week. We'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great rest of your weekend.